The Zephyrian Galactic Empire ruled over 847 star systems. Their massive ships painted the void black as they moved from one conquest to another. For 3,000 years, no species had ever said no to Emperor Kithros. His throne room walls displayed the skulls of alien leaders who dared resist his rule. On this particular day, the Emperor sat reviewing another boring report about species begging for mercy when Chief Intelligence Officer Mortak rushed in with unusual urgency. Your Majesty, our deep space probes have discovered something interesting in the Sol system. There's a species called humans who have spread beyond their home planet Earth. They have colonies on multiple worlds and seem to possess advanced technology. Emperor Kithros barely looked up from his datapad. The discovery of new species happened regularly, and they all ended the same way: complete submission or total destruction. How many systems do they control? Approximately 37 confirmed systems, possibly more. They appear to have been expanding quietly for several decades. The Emperor finally raised his head. 37 systems meant this species had some capability, but nothing compared to his vast empire. Send Ambassador Veltar with our standard offer. They have 30 rotations to submit to imperial rule or face complete annihilation. Ambassador Veltar had delivered countless ultimatums throughout his career. He expected this mission to follow the same pattern: arrive with overwhelming force, watch the aliens tremble in fear, accept their immediate surrender, then return home for the next assignment. His diplomatic cruiser, accompanied by 12 escort vessels, jumped into the Sol system with typical Zephyrian arrogance, but something felt different immediately. Instead of panicked communications or desperate pleas for mercy, human traffic control calmly directed his fleet to dock at a massive orbital station above Earth. The structure rivaled anything in the imperial capital, its clean lines and efficient design suggesting remarkable engineering capabilities. Director Park Soo-jin met him at the airlock. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and calm, intelligent eyes that seemed to evaluate everything around her. Her simple uniform bore no intimidating decorations or weapons, yet she carried herself with quiet confidence that surprised the ambassador. Welcome to Earth Station Alpha, Ambassador Veltar. I understand you have a message from your Emperor. Veltar straightened his imposing 7-foot frame and activated his translation device. I bring greetings from His Imperial Majesty Kithros, Conqueror of Worlds, Master of the Galaxy. You will submit to imperial rule within 30 rotations. Accept. Our governance, pay tribute, provide military conscripts, and surrender your weapons. Refuse, and your species faces complete extinction. He waited for the usual reaction: fear, desperation, perhaps some foolish attempt at negotiation. Instead, Director Park nodded politely, as if he had just commented on the weather. We appreciate your Emperor taking time to contact us. However, humanity must respectfully decline imperial rule. We prefer to govern ourselves. The ambassador blinked several times, certain his translator had malfunctioned. I'm sorry, did you say decline? Yes. We decline your offer. We have no interest in joining your empire. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stepped forward from where he had been observing quietly. He was younger than the director, with sharp features and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. We understand your empire is powerful, Ambassador. We've studied your expansion patterns and military capabilities extensively. However, we choose to remain independent. Veltar felt his confidence wavering. No species had ever studied the empire before contact. Most barely knew space travel existed beyond their own systems. Do you comprehend what you face? The Zephyrian Empire commands millions of warships. We have reduced entire star systems to cosmic dust. Resistance is impossible. Director Park exchanged a glance with Admiral Kim before responding. We understand the risks, Ambassador. We also understand the consequences of surrender. After careful consideration, our government has voted unanimously to maintain our independence. Your government voted? This conversation grew more surreal by the moment. Most species they encountered had single rulers who could be intimidated or eliminated. A democratic decision suggested these humans had actually debated the matter and chosen resistance despite understanding the odds. Admiral Kim activated a holographic display showing star charts. We've prepared defensive positions throughout our territory. Your Emperor is welcome to attempt conquest, but he should understand that we won't surrender easily. The casual mention of defensive preparations sent chills through Veltar. Species facing the Empire usually panicked or desperately offered tribute. These humans spoke of military resistance as if discussing routine maintenance schedules. You're making a terrible mistake, the ambassador warned. The Emperor shows no mercy to those who defy him. Perhaps, Director Park replied. But slavery, disguised as protection, remains slavery. We'd rather die free than live as subjects. Veltar departed Earth with his mind racing. Throughout his career, he had delivered ultimatums to hundreds of species. Some surrendered immediately, others resisted briefly before inevitable defeat. None had ever dismissed Imperial threats with such calm determination. These humans either possessed incredible courage or dangerous ignorance. As his ship jumped back toward the Imperial capital, the ambassador wondered which possibility frightened him more. Emperor Kithros smashed his fist against the armrest of his obsidian throne when Ambassador Veltar finished his report. The sound echoed through the vast throne room like thunder, causing several courtiers to step backward in fear. They refused? These insignificant humans actually refused our generous offer? The Emperor's voice rose to a roar that made the crystal windows vibrate. In 3,000 years, no species has ever been foolish enough to reject imperial rule. Veltar shifted uncomfortably. Your Majesty, they seemed remarkably prepared for our contact. Their leader mentioned studying our expansion patterns and military capabilities. This suggests they've been watching us for some time. Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected any surveillance. But even as Kithros spoke, doubt crept into his voice. How could primitives study the Empire without being noticed? Grand Admiral Zethkar stepped forward, his scarred face showing eager anticipation. Your Majesty, permit me to demonstrate imperial power. One destroyed colony will convince these humans to reconsider their foolish decision. The Emperor's rage slowly transformed into cold calculation. Yes, select their most isolated settlement. Destroy it completely, but leave survivors to spread word of what happens to those who defy us. Zethkar's fleet of 500 warships jumped toward Kepler 442b, a mining colony on the edge of human space. Intelligence reports suggested 50,000 civilians worked the asteroid belts, extracting rare minerals with primitive equipment, the perfect target for a demonstration of superior Zephyrian technology. The Admiral expected terror when his fleet emerged from hyperspace. Instead, calm voices from the colony's control tower directed his ships to maintain their current positions, while colonial authorities prepared their response. Prepared their response? Zethkar laughed to his bridge crew. What response could miners possibly have against the Third Battle Fleet? Colonial Defense Commander Lee Min-ho studied the tactical displays in his underground command center. The facility had been carved deep into Kepler 442b's largest moon, its walls lined with screens showing every angle of the approaching Zephyrian fleet. All defensive platforms online, reported his tactical officer. Mining ships moving to secondary positions. Civilian evacuation proceeding on schedule. Lee had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. While diplomats talked peace, military planners studied every scrap of intelligence about potential galactic threats. The Zephyrian Empire topped their list of concerns, and human strategists had developed specific countermeasures for their tactics. Sir, the Zephyrian Admiral is broadcasting surrender demands, his communications officer announced. Ignore them. Signal all units to execute Plan Meteor. Across the system, human mining ships suddenly changed from lumbering industrial vehicles into something far more dangerous. Hidden weapon systems deployed from cargo bays. Asteroid mining charges converted into kinetic projectiles. Processing facilities revealed themselves as heavily fortified positions. Admiral Zethkar watched in confusion as the mining colony transformed before his eyes. What sorcery is this? Intelligence reported primitive mining equipment. His tactical officer's voice cracked with uncertainty. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Those mining platforms are armed with weapons that rival our main battle cruisers. Impossible. Scan them again. The second scan confirmed their worst fears. Every piece of mining equipment doubled as military hardware. The humans had disguised an entire military base as a simple colony. All ships attack formation, Zethkar commanded. Destroy these deceptions. The battle began with typical Zephyrian confidence. Their energy weapons lanced out toward human positions, expecting to slice through primitive defenses like hot knives through butter. Instead, something impossible happened. Human kinetic projectiles punched straight through Zephyrian energy shields as if they didn't exist. The Empire's most advanced defensive technology, perfected over millennia of conquest, proved useless against simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible velocities. Captain Choi Hee-jin commanded the mining ship Prosperity, which had suddenly sprouted enough firepower to threaten a heavy cruiser. Her crew consisted of actual miners who had trained for combat during their off hours, following the human philosophy that every citizen should be prepared to defend their home. Target the lead battleship's engine section, she ordered calmly. Fire when ready. The tungsten projectile struck the Zephyrian flagship at a significant fraction of light speed. The impact tore through armor plating that had withstood the most powerful energy weapons in the galaxy. Secondary explosions rippled along the ship's hull as critical systems failed. Admiral Zethkar stared in horror as his flagship's main drives went offline. How? How are primitive kinetic weapons penetrating our shields? His science officer's face had gone pale. Sir, our shields are designed to deflect energy-based attacks. These solid projectiles carry too much mass and velocity. The shield generators can't repel them. Across the battlefield, Zephyrian ships discovered that 3,000 years of energy weapon development had left them vulnerable to an ancient technology they had abandoned long ago. Human kinetic bombardment tore through their formations like a storm destroying paper ships. But the humans demonstrated something even more unsettling than superior firepower. When Zephyrian vessels suffered critical damage and their crews abandoned ship, human rescue ships immediately moved to assist. Enemy soldiers found themselves pulled from the vacuum of space and given medical treatment aboard human vessels. Captain Choi personally visited the medical bay where wounded Zephyrian officers received care alongside human casualties. We're not barbarians, she explained to a confused enemy captain. We defend ourselves when attacked, but we don't murder helpless prisoners. This mercy confused warriors raised on imperial brutality more than any weapon could have. Throughout Zephyrian history, defeat meant death or slavery. These humans fought with devastating effectiveness while simultaneously showing compassion for their enemies. Admiral Zethkar found himself aboard a human medical ship after his flagship exploded. As doctors worked to save his life, he struggled to understand opponents who could destroy his fleet while treating his wounds with gentle care. The survivors of the Third Battle Fleet limped back to Imperial space carrying impossible news. The humans had not only won but had done so while maintaining their humanity. The news of Admiral Zethkar's defeat reached Emperor Kithros like a physical blow. In his 3,000-year reign, no Imperial fleet had ever suffered such a humiliating loss. The survivors' reports painted an impossible picture of humans wielding primitive weapons with devastating effectiveness while showing mercy to their enemies. Lies! The Emperor's voice echoed through the War Council chamber. 500 warships cannot be defeated by mining equipment. But the evidence was undeniable. Wreckage analysis confirmed that human kinetic weapons had indeed penetrated advanced Zephyrian shields. More disturbing were the testimonies from rescued Imperial officers, who described receiving medical care from the same humans who had destroyed their ships. Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Morden spoke carefully, perhaps these humans possess capabilities we underestimated. Their technology appears different from anything we've encountered. Kithros slammed his fist on the war table, causing holographic star maps to flicker. Different or not, there's still just one species. Mobilize the 5th Imperial Armada. 200,000 warships should be sufficient to crush this rebellion once and for all. While the Empire prepared its massive fleet, human intelligence networks had been busy. General Yang Subin sat in her command center deep beneath New Geneva's surface, studying intercepted Zephyrian communications. For decades, she had prepared humanity's colonies for exactly this scenario. "The Empire is mobilizing everything," her intelligence chief reported. 200,000 ships, including their heavy dreadnoughts and planet-killer weapons. Yang nodded calmly. "Expected. Signal all colony worlds to implement Protocol 7. It's time to show them what humans do when cornered." Across human space, seemingly peaceful colonies began their transformation. Mining equipment revealed hidden weapon systems. Agricultural, processing plants converted to munitions factories. Civilian cargo haulers deployed military-grade sensors and communication arrays. The truth was that humanity had never built purely civilian colonies. Every settlement, every outpost, every research station had been designed from the ground up to serve dual purposes. What the Zephyrians saw as scattered mining operations were actually interconnected fortress worlds linked by quantum communication networks. Commander Park Jin-woo oversaw the defense preparations on New Geneva. His engineering teams worked around the clock, turning the planet's 3 moons into weapons platforms and converting orbital habitats into defensive positions. "Sir, civilian evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule," his aide reported. "The transport ships are using routes through the asteroid belts and gas giant systems." "Good. Make sure the evacuation looks panicked and disorganized. Let the Zephyrians think we're fleeing in terror." Park smiled grimly. "They'll learn soon enough that we're not running away. We're taking positions." When the 5th Imperial Armada arrived at New Geneva, they found what appeared to be a lightly defended agricultural world. Long-range scans detected only a few orbital platforms and some mining ships scattered throughout the system. The human population seemed to be evacuating in obvious panic. Admiral Kethmore, commanding the Armada, felt confident as he surveyed the tactical displays. 200,000 ships against a handful of defenders. This will be over quickly. But as the Imperial fleet moved into attack formation, the system around them came alive. Ships emerged from asteroid fields where they had been hiding, perfectly camouflaged among the rocks. Gas giant mining platforms revealed themselves as heavily armed battle stations. Even the planet's moons began firing weapons that hadn't been visible moments before. "Where did they all come from?" Kethmore demanded as his sensors showed human ships appearing throughout the system. "Our intelligence reported minimal defenses." His tactical officer's voice shook with confusion. "Sir, they were there all along. Their stealth technology is unlike anything in our databases. Our sensors classified them as natural phenomena or civilian equipment." The battle for New Geneva became a masterpiece of human military doctrine. Rather than meeting the Imperial fleet in direct confrontation, human forces used the entire star system as their battlefield. Ships would appear from impossible hiding places, strike with devastating precision, then vanish back into the cosmic background. Captain Song Mi-ra commanded a squadron of modified cargo haulers that had been hiding in the upper atmosphere of a gas giant. The crushing pressure and electromagnetic interference that would destroy most ships barely affected human vessels designed for extreme environment operations. "All units initiate Storm Pattern 7, she ordered as her ships rose from the planet's cloud layers like ghosts emerging from fog. "Target the enemy supply vessels, cut off their logistics." Human strategy focused on something the Zephyrians had never encountered before. An enemy that understood logistics wins wars, not just battles. While Imperial forces fought over individual planets, human raiders struck at fuel depots, ammunition ships, and communication relays throughout Zephyrian space. The Empire discovered that their 3,000-year expansion had created a weakness they never recognized. Their supply line stretched across hundreds of star systems, and humanity had been quietly mapping every route, every depot, every critical junction for years. Commander Yoon Dong-hyun led deep strike missions that hit Imperial bases far behind the front lines. His ships would appear from hyperspace, destroy their targets with surgical precision, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. "The Zephyrians fight like they're still conquering primitives," he explained to his officers. "They expect enemies to stand still and fight fair. were not going to accommodate them. As weeks turned to months, the Empire began to realize they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered. The humans didn't just defend their territory, they actively hunted Imperial forces throughout the galaxy. Every victory cost the Zephyrians more ships than they could afford to lose, while human losses remained mysteriously light. Emperor Kithros watched his war maps with growing horror as red markers indicating lost fleets multiplied across the display. The humans weren't just resisting conquest, they were systematically dismantling his empire's ability to wage war. The galaxy's greatest military power was learning what it meant to fight an enemy that had been preparing for this conflict since their first contact with alien civilizations. The war had been raging for 18 months when Emperor Kithros finally understood the true horror of his situation. His empire, built over 3 millennia of conquest, was crumbling faster than he could reinforce it. The humans weren't just defending anymore, they were hunting his fleets across the galaxy like predators stalking wounded prey. In his private chambers, surrounded by holographic displays showing Imperial losses, Kithros stared at numbers that defied belief. The 5th Imperial Armada had been reduced from 200,000 ships to barely 30,000 effective vessels. Worse, yet for every human ship his forces destroyed, 3 more seemed to appear from nowhere. How is this possible? He whispered to his remaining advisors. Where are they building so many ships? Intelligence Chief Veltok stepped forward with the latest reports. Your Majesty, we've discovered the truth. The humans don't have centralized shipyards like our empire. Every colony, every mining station, every research outpost has manufacturing capabilities. They've distributed their industrial capacity across hundreds of worlds. The Emperor felt his blood run cold. Traditional military doctrine focused on destroying an enemy's major production centers. But how do you cripple an opponent whose entire civilization functions as one massive weapons factory? Meanwhile, Captain Song Mira was demonstrating humanity's most terrifying capability aboard the captured Zephyrian dreadnought, Eternal Conquest. Her engineering teams had spent only 6 weeks studying the alien vessel before producing hybrid weapons that outperformed anything in the Imperial arsenal. The Zephyrian energy matrix is actually quite elegant, she explained to Admiral Kim Taeho during their inspection of the modified ship. But they've been using the same basic design for centuries. We've improved their efficiency by 40% just by applying human metallurgy techniques. This adaptability struck fear into Imperial commanders throughout the galaxy. Humans didn't just capture enemy technology. They reverse-engineered it, improved it, and mass-produced superior versions faster than seemed physically possible. Commander Li Juhi discovered this firsthand when her reconnaissance squadron encountered a Zephyrian patrol near the Vega system. The enemy ships carried new experimental weapons designed specifically to counter human kinetic bombardment. But within hours of the battle's end, human engineers were studying the wreckage and developing countermeasures. They adapt too quickly, the surviving Zephyrian captain told his interrogators. We developed new tactics, and within days you found ways to defeat them. How do you share information so fast across such vast distances? Lee smiled but didn't answer. The truth was that humanity had solved faster than light communication decades ago, something the Empire had never achieved. While Zephyrian commanders waited weeks for orders from the capital, human forces coordinated in real time across hundreds of star systems. But the war's most significant development wasn't technological, it was political. Throughout the Empire's conquered territories, subjugated species were whispering about human victories. For 3,000 years, these civilizations had lived under brutal imperial rule, believing resistance was impossible. On the mining world of Kepler 186f, the native Althari had endured centuries of slavery under Zephyrian occupation. But when human liberation forces arrived, they brought something more valuable than weapons: hope. We're not here to replace one empire with another, Colonel Park Highrim explained to the Althari resistance leaders. We're here to help you reclaim your freedom. The Althari had never encountered conquerors who offered liberation instead of subjugation. When human forces drove off the imperial garrison, they immediately began helping the natives rebuild their destroyed cities and restore their cultural heritage. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. The Empire's foundation, fear and oppression, began cracking as subject species realized that the supposedly invincible Zephyrians could be defeated. Admiral Yoon Dong-hyun capitalized on this growing rebellion by launching simultaneous strikes at 17 Imperial strongholds. The attacks demonstrated coordination that should have been impossible across such vast distances, suggesting communication methods the Empire couldn't detect or intercept. Each assault followed the same pattern. Human forces would appear without warning, neutralize orbital defenses with surgical precision, then offer the garrison a choice: surrender and receive safe passage home, or resist and face annihilation. Most chose surrender after witnessing what happened to those who fought. Human military doctrine had evolved beyond simple destruction. They waged psychological warfare that convinced enemies that resistance was futile, while surrender was honorable. Fleet Commander Kim So-young proved this approach's effectiveness. During the siege of Proxima Fortress, the Empire's regional headquarters, the massive space station had never fallen to enemy attack in 800 years of operation. "Attention, Proxima Garrison," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you'll be transported safely to neutral territory. Continue fighting and you'll share the fate of the 7th Imperial Fleet." The garrison commander knew that the 7th Fleet had been completely destroyed just days earlier, its survivors rescued by the same humans who had annihilated their ships. This combination of overwhelming force and unexpected mercy had broken the morale of Imperial forces throughout the sector. Within 6 hours, Proxima Fortress surrendered, without firing a shot. As news of these victories spread, Emperor Kithros watched his empire dissolve like sand in a storm. Rebellion erupted on world after world as subject species threw off their chains. Imperial forces found themselves fighting not just humans but entire sectors of their own territory. The species that had seemed so unremarkable 18 months ago had systematically destroyed 3,000 years of Imperial expansion. And they had done it not through conquest, but by offering something the galaxy had forgotten existed: genuine freedom. Emperor Kithros stood alone in his vast throne room, staring at the tactical displays that told the story of his empire's collapse. Red warning lights blinked across the holographic galaxy map, each one representing another lost system, another defeated fleet, another world in rebellion. In less than 2 years, the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been reduced to barely 50 star systems around the imperial capital. The massive doors opened with a groan and his last remaining admiral stumbled in. Admiral Torvak's uniform was torn, his face marked with exhaustion and defeat. He had just escaped the destruction of the 12th Imperial Fleet, the Empire's final mobile force. "Your Majesty," Torvak gasped, dropping to one knee. "The humans have broken through our outer defenses. Their ships are approaching the capital system. We have perhaps 6 hours before they arrive." Kithros felt something he had never experienced in 3,000 years of rule: genuine terror. Not fear of death, but fear of facing an enemy who had proven themselves superior in every possible way. The humans had systematically dismantled his empire while somehow managing to liberate rather than conquer the territories they took. "How many ships do they bring?" the Emperor asked, though he suspected the answer wouldn't matter. "Our scouts report 30,000 vessels, Your Majesty. But their true strength isn't in numbers. They coordinate their attacks with impossible precision, and their technology has advanced beyond our ability to counter it." Through the palace windows, Kithros could see panicked citizens fleeing the capital city. But even in their terror, there was something different about the evacuation. The humans had been broadcasting messages for days, promising safe passage to any civilians who wished to leave, and guaranteeing protection for those who remained. "They offer mercy, even to our people," the Emperor murmured, "after everything we've done to them." Admiral Torvak nodded grimly. "The human commander, Admiral Lee Ju-hee, has been trying to establish communication. She claims they don't want to destroy our civilization, only end our expansion and occupation of other worlds." The irony wasn't lost on Kithros. For 3 millennia, his empire had conquered through fear and brutality. These humans had defeated him through superior strategy, advanced technology, and something the empire had never possessed: the moral authority that came from fighting for freedom rather than conquest. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. On the main display, Admiral Lee Ju-hee appeared. She was younger than Kithros had expected, with calm, intelligent eyes that reminded him uncomfortably of Director Park Soo-jin, the woman who had first refused his ultimatum so long ago. "Emperor Kithros," Admiral Lee said with respectful formality, "I'm requesting permission to enter your system for diplomatic discussions. We have terms we'd like to present." The Emperor studied her face, searching for signs of the cruelty he would have shown a defeated enemy. Instead, he saw only professional competence and what appeared to be genuine concern for minimizing further bloodshed. "You could simply take what you want," Kithros replied. "Why negotiate with a defeated enemy?" "Because that's not who we are," Admiral Lee answered simply. "We fight when forced to defend ourselves, but we prefer peace when possible. May we proceed with discussions?" 6 hours later, Admiral Lee Ju-hee walked through the corridors of the Imperial Palace accompanied by a small diplomatic team. Colonel Park Jin-soo, her military attaché, carried a datapad containing humanity's terms. The human delegation wore simple uniforms without the intimidating decorations favored by Imperial forces. Emperor Kithros received them in his throne room, though he had dismissed the usual crowd of courtiers and guards. This conversation would determine not just his empire's fate, but the future of galactic civilization itself. "Your terms?" he asked without preamble. Admiral Lee activated a holographic display showing a detailed treaty. Complete withdrawal from all occupied territories within 1 standard year. Reparations to species displaced or harmed during Imperial expansion to be supervised by an independent galactic council. Dismantling of planet-killer weapons and other instruments designed purely for genocide. And establishment of a galactic confederation where disputes are resolved through diplomacy rather than force. Kithros studied the terms with growing amazement. "You're not demanding our surrender? Our submission to human rule?" "No, Your Majesty. We're offering your people a chance to join the galactic community as equals rather than conquerors. The Zephyrian species has remarkable capabilities that could benefit everyone if directed toward cooperation instead of domination." Colonel Park stepped forward with additional documentation. "We're prepared to provide technological assistance for converting your military infrastructure to civilian purposes. Your shipyards could build exploration vessels instead of warships. Your soldiers could become engineers and scientists." The Emperor felt tears forming in his ancient eyes. These humans offered something no defeated enemy had ever received in galactic history: genuine redemption. They weren't interested in revenge or conquest, only in building a better future for everyone. "Why?" he whispered. "After everything we've done, why show such mercy?" Admiral Lee's expression softened slightly. "Because mercy is what separates civilization from barbarism, Your Majesty. We could have destroyed your empire through conquest, but that would have made us no different from what you were. Instead, we're offering you the chance to become what you could be." Emperor Kithros looked around his throne room one final time, seeing it now as a monument to 3,000 years of unnecessary suffering. With hands that trembled slightly, he reached for the treaty documents. "I accept your terms," he said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "May the galaxy forgive us for what we were, and may we prove worthy of what we might become." As he signed the surrender documents ending the greatest war in galactic history, Kithros realized that humanity's true victory wasn't military, it was moral. They had proven that strength without compassion led only to destruction, while wisdom, combined with mercy, could transform enemies into allies. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun.